called
There's a
Faithful and
$60,000
True.
college
And
scholarship,
in
but I can't
righteousness
find enough
he
black
would
and brown
judge
people.
and make war.
Mark, can you
Hallelujah.
put some
So let's
information
look to
on
the hills from which cometh our help on this morning. My help comes from the Lord that made the heavens and that made the earth. Listen, I love you, and I'll see you in a move of God. God bless you, Buffalo.
So Jim's probably going to call in too, right?
Yeah, he had said he might call in, but he's in Ohio teaching a class as well. So
You guys are live.
I have Facebook. Glad you guys are tuning in. For our viewers that we have on here, the show will be starting relatively soon. We're just kind of getting the behind the scenes stuff squared away.
So they can't hear this part.
No, normally it actually does play through here, but I think it's because he has his headphones on that now.
Locally, nationally, it's Conversation with Jim Anderson. And now, your host, Jim Anderson.
Good morning, Buffalo. It is Austin Martin. Sadly, Jim is still not joining us this week. He will still be out of town, but next week he should be back. I got a very interesting interview today. We have two guests who are very knowledgeable. It's actually going to be a repeat interview, so we'll have more than an hour to tackle this topic that's going to be shaking up Buffalo in the next coming months. Before we jump right into the interview, though, 2 weeks ago, I talked about a new segment called Connection of the Week, which is when we're highlighting a community individual that's bringing change and an important message to the community forefront, and somebody that I think we need to see. And this week, we have a Mr. Christian Gaddis of 43 North. This man specifically was a person who came to Buffalo to play football. One of our, we have that dream, right? We want to make it out. A lot of people want to play football. This is someone who's doing our dream. And as he kind of walked further into that dream and had to pivot into a different direction, he began to walk into the tech space, where he currently does at 43 North, he allows startup companies to have an opportunity to have funding behind them, companies that are often marginalized, people that don't look like typically when we think about a startup, people that look maybe outside that traditional model and spectrum. But that being said, the importance of it is when you have people that look like not the traditional model, that look like us, that may have been forgotten. One thing I talked about is it's not about necessarily eating the food at the table, but it's about having a seat and feeling like we belong, feeling like we deserve a place in the technological space. The world we recognize is going towards technology. Sadly, I hate to inform it to you, but your phone is probably not going away tomorrow or any day soon. And so as technology continues to take over the space and have a place in our market and domain of what we see, it's important that we can have a piece of that pie. And the only way we can do that is through being represented and fighting to be into these spaces, broadening our spectrums to say that, like I said, it's not about eating at the table, but we deserve a seat. And so I just want to highlight again Mr. Christian Gaddis of 43 North for allowing people marginalized and put on the edges to have a seat and feel like they belong in the scope of the future that we're creating for our country. So that shout out aside, like I said, I have a super interesting interview today. So I want to get straight into the meat of the interview. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Murray Holman, and we also have a Mr. McDuffie. And these two men today here are to talk about some of the political changes that we're seeing in Buffalo. It's a lot of decisions that are being made behind and in front of the scenes that we need to be aware of. When we think about the political machine of Buffalo, oftentimes we're playing defense, we're reacting, right? We brought up the awareness about the Bill Stadium to try to get people aware on that. And just like the Bill Stadium having to be proactive, this is another issue we have to be proactive on. And so without further ado, we're going to get straight into the interview. So before we get into the major questions, I want to give our guests a chance to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do, and give us a scope of who we're in the booth with that we're about to hear from.
Welcome. Hey, everyone. How you doing? This is Murray Holman from Stop the Violence Coalition and Western Europe Peacemakers. I'm here today to talk about some things that's taking place in the city of Buffalo. I do numerous works in the city of Buffalo. Shouts out to Pastor Giles and Back to Basics and those other organizations. But one thing we want to make sure today is that you find the information that you need to give you something to think about.
Good morning. My name is Michael McDuffie. I'm the coach of the Archangel 8 Chess Academy, which is an enrichment scholastic chess program. at the Meriwether Library, and we've been doing this since 1999.
And we have some big things you guys are here to talk about. Now, you may be listening saying, how do these relate? But I want to tell you the city is smaller than you think. And I want to tell you the things that you don't think are related are. And we have, like I said, two very knowledgeable men in the studio today. So I'm going to just start asking questions because we need to hear. We hungry. We got some food. We need to hear from y'all.
Right?
And so what is the shakeup? What's going on in Buffalo that we need to be so aware of? That's coming, that we, whether you want to or not, is coming. What's coming that we need to be aware of on the horizon?
Looking at you. You just got all this energy. You just went right into it, man. I mean, me and Miss Duffy a little bit older, and we love to see the vision of, man, you just got energy, brother. I just want to commend you for staying out there. And how old are you now?
I'm 19.
19 years old. So what is the shakeup? The shakeup, folks, is very simple. We've been talking about it already. We have Congressman Brian Higgins is now going to retire. Brian Higgins has been done great work in the city of Buffalo. He's an alumni from South Park. I'm an alumni from South Park. I want to send that out there to you. But this man has always had his doors open. And now that he's retiring, it's just made a shakeup of who's going to be next. And I think when Mr. McDuffie started talking about chess moves, this seemed like what we're playing right now, right into the hands of him. He came in the door. I'm like, man, it's a chess move going on here. If you don't know how to play chess, you better learn how to do some math. Because it all ties into everything that's happening here. So the players in the puzzle. Let's go right there from Congressman Higgins' office. We have Senator Kennedy that has put his hat in the race. Then we have Mayor Brown has put his hat in the race. And I don't know about Mark Polenkarsh from County Exec's office. I think he might put his hat in the race. And then there might be others. Now we have a switcheroo might be going around in politics, or politics as they call it. So we're just going to be clear about what we're saying here right now, because if that happens, we're going to have a major shakeup in Buffalo, New York with the Democratic Party line. So that means people are going to be losing position because you can't run for position and also, hold a position. So that's where we at, folks. It's going to be and we're going to just stick right there for right now and talk to Mr. McDuffie and yourself. How do you feel about it?
I think that it's a vacuum, right? And I think sometimes when things move fast, our government moves very slow. And I think that's how it was designed, right? It's intentional. It moves the rate that people can acquire and accommodate change. We're creatures of habit. And so I like doing the same things. And so when I now suddenly can't sign just incumbency and just select the same name that I've always seen, it gets a little nerve wracking. So I think that it's a chance for change, but change has good and bad, right? I think we have the potential to really put in a different vision. I think we've been stuck into a mindset of Buffalo, and we want change. We explain that, we say with our words, but our actions sometimes don't align with what we're saying, right? We'll say we want change, but the polls sometimes indicate otherwise. But now we have no option. Right. Wow. So whether you don't want to look at it or not, whether you don't read the paper or not, like I said, when you get to that voting booth, when you get to that polling station, the name you may be expecting is not going to be there. And so I think that it gives us the potential to really see some big change in the city. But with that ability for change, because of the quickness that the change is coming, it's not as normal as it is where it's over years. And no, this is happening quick. And so with the quickness of it, I fear that some people may make an uninformed decision. Right now, we're playing
Think
again.
with your mind,
right?
Not on the line.
Like we talked
Michael
about.
Chapman just said, right?
Like we talked about with chess. Now where the time is running down. We got 30 seconds to make a move, and I never been here before. So now I'm just moving pieces. I don't even know what I'm doing. We're lost from theory. And so my fear is that with that gap and that time kind of restraint on it, there's the potential to make a lot of mistakes. And so, like I said, I think if we're not intentional with our decisions, we're not on top of our information regarding different candidates and people throwing their hat in the ring, we have potential to either see a lot of change.
Want to vote for favoritism on that level. I want to go this direction, that direction, and here we are to the point now that you done made the wrong move, and that's where that chess come into play, right? Mr. McDuffie, I see you sitting there a little bit eager now. Where we at with this?
Well, a lot of your decisions is based on your preparation. Mm-hmm. Just like the Buffalo Bills just said, we were successful because we came to prepare for the Jets. Mm-hmm. And the work that we did, and everybody came with a certain energy that day or that week. Every day, everybody came to play. And that makes all the difference in the world. So if you're not prepared, or you don't look for research, or you don't look for the additional information, obviously maybe you come to the wrong conclusion.
Wow. So it's very clear that the players are there. It's just a matter about who wants to be quarterback.
Right.
in order to make this happen. And so now we didn't have this happen here in the city of Buffalo before, when one person has won the election and the other hasn't won or was endorsed. Now we're going to have an endorsement problem going on because you're going to have 3 candidates from the Democratic Party running. So which way do we go? You see what I'm saying? So now you might have splitting of votes and all that there with our seniors and our youth. The key part of it to it right now is our youth. Young man in Rochester, New York, that just won the election at 19 years old, same age you are.
Right.
He's on the school board, but I don't know if our youth here in Buffalo are on that level. But now I'm looking at it like, who do we pick? Do we go with Kennedy? Do we go with Mayor Brown? Or do we go with polling cards if he gets in the race, or anyone else that gets in that race? So where are we going to be at? So now the vote's going to be split up. And it's going to be very harsh on our community.
And I think to touch on, if you don't mind me piggybacking on what you said, Mr. McDuffie, I think that it is preparation, right? How are we preparing not only ourselves, but the city for change? One question I know we touched on a little bit before the show started, and I've been touching on for many weeks with different political candidates that we've had come through the station is, how do you prepare a city for change, right? We say, like I said, we say we want to go, we're ready for change, but that's a process. Yeah. And you know that undergoing that, like I said, people are very habitual. How do we prepare, and I think maybe we can focus on the youth aspect to start. How do we prepare the youth of our city, right? How do we enrich them in the correct way so that they are prepared to take this change and run with it? Like we said, not squander this, because it is an opportunity, right? As much as it is a risk, it's an opportunity. It's a chance for us to, like we see in Rochester, put maybe a really, really new face into this political machine that can really fit what we want, rather than just fit what we the lip service that we're used to.
We need you definitely in that spot.
Hey, maybe y'all want to write me in and do something.
I can say one thing. One thing I learned from Coach McDuffie was how young the people who don't necessarily look like us prepare their kids. What'd you say? Age 3, they start chess. 3 years old. And I want him to talk about that, because knowing how to think and strategize starting at 3 years old, and not just no easy, I want a cookie, but they're teaching them. So I would love for you to share some of those things, because I feel like that's one of the things we miss sometimes, is that we'll put our kids in front of TV and they're commuting from all over. When I came there that day, I was shocked. Was there any parents that looked like us? I don't think I saw it that day. And they were at the Merriweather, where people always say the city is not safe, but they were coming to the city for an opportunity. And I think that's one of those places where it starts. So I would love for you to share some of these things, and I'm going to highlight them in the comments, but that's an important piece.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times I've been to Lockport, I've been to Orchard Park, I've been to South Buffalo, and I've been consistent about what I've done, and I'm consistent about what I do. So a lot of times if I've scheduled something for an event at a particular venue, then people know that I'm going to be there, and I've done it on a consistent basis, and that's what's made me successful along the way. And a lot of times individuals who don't look like me, apparently in other countries and other cultures, apparently have a better appreciation about the game of chess than others. And a lot of times they start them early, and they focus on what they're supposed to do. And they also get their children involved in music. And just so you know, chess also complements people in music and math.
Absolutely. I want to touch on what you're talking about, allow you to continue, but we do have a caller who wants to join the conversation. Caller, you should be on the air.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Another, I believe, great topic when you talk about politics in the city. When we talk about politics, we just talk about usually two parties. One usually be the Republicans, and for Black folks, is always the Democrats. Now, over the years, I'm an older fella. I've been voting for quite a few years, 40 years or more. Matter of fact, 50 years or more. And when I look across the community, all I ever see are people, we make these votes and we vote for these so-called Democrats, is kibbles and bits. For 60 years, we've been looking up and down, for instance, the east side of Buffalo, saying the same thing. Now they make decisions without the community being involved. I mean, as such, is where we don't even pick our how would I say, legislators or our council people who happen to Democratic Party themselves pick. They pick people that work with them, that that they know as friends and things and such as that. The news media also doesn't pick. Doesn't pick independents, for instance. They don't go right to the Democratic Party. We as Black people, we need to learn how you say, not just vote our party, but vote our conscience. Vote people that's in there, that's working in the community, that's doing things in the community. Not because them or somebody else say. Now, I know I have a short time, but there's some very important elections coming up. You know, like you said, different people are changing and push parties and different things such as that to get into other politics. But we have to think very careful. For instance, you hear the mayor talk about maybe running for Congress. Well, really, I ain't seen him really do much of anything but hire a bunch of people yet, which is good. You see what I'm saying? As far as hiring people. But look at my community spending the same mistake the same. So why would I vote for somebody like that? That he told he fixed the same street that he lived off for 16 years. I mean, this is totally freaking crazy. But because they're in Democratic line, we go straight across. We better start thinking about who we vote for and the people that's really doing the work in the community, and not the people that the Democratic Party just throwing our face. You know, we supposed to think, and I've been a Democrat all of those years, so I have the right to speak.
Absolutely,
now,
caller.
talk about stuff. Let's get serious about the politics. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think to recognize that point, we have the perfect
Yes.
person in the studio right now to talk about it. Mr. Holman, if you could reply.
Well, I can reply on all levels of that there. The Democratic Party is a great party. It's a great party. All parties are great parties. Anyone that goes out there and put themselves online and says this is the way you can go is great. But we just got to tune it. It needs a tune up. It's the same old. McDuffie back in the day when Arthur O'Eve and Omar ran and things like that there, it was these type of party lines that was making decisions in our community. The black community has always been in a struggle to pick out the right candidate. I could tell you if you was in New York City or Chicago, activists always win. I don't get it, but then come to Buffalo, things happen based on party lines or based on how much finances or resources you have. You do the math. It's just that clear. But here we are today, right now, talking about what's going to happen in Congress. But what happens if Mayor Brown decides to run? Will he have to relinquish his job and then someone else come in as an interim? On that level, that's the city level. If Mark Polikarz decides that he just won the election, if he decides that he wants to run, he has to relinquish his job as well. So now we got a void. If Senator Kennedy decides to get in this race, like he said, he has to relinquish his job. So now we got a whole dynamic of a shift here may happen across and from Buffalo to Albany. And that's very dangerous for our community of so having so many people trying to move out and then put voids out there. And then now we have special elections coming up and we'll spend money there. And then most black folks don't know when the election is coming. We usually just do it when the presidential race come up, but they change these dates on us. We're voting in the summertime before we should vote in September and things like that there. So this stuff is getting ready to have a big effect on us. And God forbid if the legislation April Baskin and Howard decides they want to run for a Senate position. Now that leaves another position open up there. Right. Folks, you better start doing your math and figuring out, put it on a piece of paper and write out and see where we're going to be. And then if we get a candidate that no one knows, where we're going to be.
Right.
Yes.
And like we talked about to go back before the call about preparing for that. If you can continue talking, I know, like we said, we got a lot of groups that we need to get into this voting booth in the right mindset. And like we talked about, a big area that we're missing, that we've been missing for a while, is that youth support, yes. Right? That youth activity. Are we committed to the voting process? Do we see the value in it? And like we said, we're finding out these dates the night of, right? We're running, right. We're doing things. Oh, I didn't even know. I saw in the newspaper that voting closed. We're not seeing it when it says voting open. And so,
or our media plays a game, right? And bamboozle your mind to think this is the best candidate. And here we go. And then we find out it's the same old. Can we have that happen in the city of Buffalo this year? On your backs, on my back.
I don't think that we can. I think that, like we said, preparing our youth, right, preparing ourselves in general, but looking at it on the youth side is so important. Like you were talking about, and you continue talking about, how do we prepare our young people from an early age, get them exposed and comfortable, not only just with the political side, but with thinking independently, because that's really what I'm hearing, right? We're at people that are voting 3-4 generations down, same party line, not because we know what the candidates stand for, right, but it's because we're used to that color. Yes. And so, again, if you can talk about how do we get younger people used to the idea of being an independent thinker, thinking against maybe the norm.
First of all, one way to do that, I'm an election inspector.
Wow.
So why can't an individual, reason why I became an election inspector is because my mom and dad were community activists.
Yeah.
And my job was to go around and pass a little leaflets around the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
I got drafted I didn't get a choice.
Right.
It was like, here, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
So go out and do it. So everything I do now is just go out and do it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Now, but becoming an election inspector, you become part of the process.
Yes.
So you know when the election is, you know how to do the vote, and you know how to tell people what to do. So every time I go to be election inspector, a lot of times they send me out the Republican area because there's no Democrats in the area. So I represent the Democratic Party when I go.
Or the melon part of the problem, basically.
Whatever you want to call
it.
it. I'm there, but I don't look like the other people in that area.
That's right. Yes.
And so when other people who live in those other areas see me, it's like, oh,
we didn't know you was around.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden now they recognize me because of my chess aspect. It's like, oh, okay, well, he must know what he's doing. And then you also, by participating in the process, you now get to understand how it works. And you also confirm other people when they're walking into the booth how to do your vote. Even if you're confused, you got somebody that looks like you that says, hey, this is how you're supposed to do it, or just go ahead and fill out the absentee ballot, the affidavit.
So you're an inspector.
Yeah.
So
and I have been since 18.
So, but that was different. You were doing paper. Now, when you go into the spectrum booth, they have a computer sitting there, and they're asking you questions because some people told me they asked them their date of birth, things like that. They're not supposed to do that. All they're supposed to ask you is your name, right? So now people are getting a little confused about how this process is going down, how they taking data, AI data, and using it in our elections. So this is what we've been dealing with lately at the polls, where our elders going there because someone's sitting there with a computer and saying, what's your name? Back in the day was you went up there and all you had to do was just say your name, and that was it. And you went and you got your ballot to vote. Here we are now, it's so much technology involved and so much unbalance of how we do in our community. That's, as an inspector, you have to deal with those issues now.
Well, how that came about is because I've been an inspector since I've been 18 years old. The ladies in the little green booth told me, your job is to take over our job when we leave. And so now, even when they had the book, you go there, you tell your name, and they look you up in the address.
Done deal.
But you had other individuals who said, no, you can't do that. How can somebody else? I can just walk up there and say, I'm Mr. Thus and such, and I live on thus and such a street, and I'll go in and vote. And then also when Mr. Thus and such really does show up, then all of a sudden now there's a conflict.
Got it.
So right now that little chirping has now brought to the AI. Or they now got the computer. So this is the first time now when you go there, you either show your driver's license or you just show up like usual and give them your name. And they'll type your name in the computer, and then they'll ask you to verify the information that's already there. And if it's not, you just go ahead and fill out the affidavit.
Yes.
So you still get to vote, but don't walk out, get it all in the huff.
Well, a lot of people had done that. They really found out that their rights were impeded.
Correct.
And they walked out.
Correct.
And so
but now you know where that came from, and all the other stuff that's been going on with all the other nationwide, what's going on about individuals. It's like, well, how did all these immigrants get the vote? How come the dead people get the vote? How come these other people get the vote? Wrong answer. The answer is right there. It's already there. And if you still like the vote, say, I like to vote for affidavit.
I think we gotta just at some point realize you can't have it both ways, right? Either you're worried about the validity of the voting system,
correct,
or you're worried about how transparent it is, but we gotta pick a battle. And I feel like if you're asking me as a voter to decide between the risk of voting being fraudulent for the sake of saving my identity, I'm gonna be honest, I'm only 19. I believe the government probably knows more about me than I know about myself.
Come on,
I be on my phone, I talk, I know it's listening, I still talk about it.
But it's a process, maybe sometimes how the individuals behind the scenes are asking the question. Sometimes,
well, you know what, you got political parties. Well, this is what the problem comes down to as well. Some groups out here, and I'm not going to mention their names, have people already placed in those polls to do that. And so now it's swaying that person's vote that come up there. So it's not a balanced field. And that's what we're talking about today. It's a shakeup. It's the shakeup that's happening here in Western New York that's going to affect all of us in the near future. And even with the 33, there's a shakeup going on. We didn't even talk about that piece there, how the political party just giving us something to do and saying either use it or lose it. So how you feel about that? It's a shakeup.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of continue to talk along the lines of, and before I even start that thought, I'm going to go ahead and go to a caller. We just got a caller. Caller, you are on the air. Hello?
Hello. Jen Clark. I like to say that preparation is power. Whatever you do in life is assessment to make a plan. And then all plans should begin with a careful assessment for all the circumstances involved. The point of this is that the information that is processed will give you acts around to get the help from the appropriate people. Arming yourself with the reverence intel, and it will allow you to alter your plan accordingly. In other words, proper preparation prevent poor performance. It seems like we instead of being proactive, we be reactive after the damage is done. And all you gotta do is look at the inner city community that has been damaged all these years, pretending to do something about it, and nothing gets done, regardless of your vote.
Right.
And then the power is the ability to define our reality.
Absolutely.
Great. You got it, brother.
I appreciate the call. Thank you. And if you are someone listening who also wants to join into the conversation, you can join in at 716-837-1112. I know we were just talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Reactive, right? So can you give us some more information, Mr. Holman, on what is some of the people that are coming to fill this vacuum right now? We have a void, right? We have these people who are looking to abdicate their seats and maybe move on to greater things, and they're all trying for this position. But in the wake of them leaving, who are some of those people who are telling themselves, I'm not throwing my hat in the ring for the top position, but I see some of them lower hanging fruit that I'm trying to grab onto. What are some of these people that we need to keep an eye on for these positions?
Well, we just got two new freshmen just came aboard, and I'm quite sure that they probably thinking, oh man, do I move up or, what's there for me, because they have already been in the field. Both of them been in the field under leadership. Even with our majority leader. And now that shift, I don't know, she might decide to retire next, and then we really have a big shake of assembly. But, if we have young folks, have they been groomed up enough? I don't see them yet, that want to put their hat in the political race. They might be saying, now I want to get into it. Or they be like, no, I want to get into it because it's so dirty. I'm going to tell you one thing about it. When I was an activist and I ran for Madison District Councilman, at first, from the powers that be from Albany all the way down, they were shaking my hand tight and firm. As soon as I got in the race, they started shaking my hand lightly. They was like, you can feel it, and then I wasn't getting calls to certain things. And I had to deal with gun violence and the knowledge that I have. And I was like, for real? But after the race, then they started hugging you tight, saying, great race. Do better and all that there. So now, I'm like, here we go. So, the tricks.
Right.
So here we are with, Jim Anderson show that puts it out there, and don't hold back. I respect what he's been doing out there in the community, but if it's not enough young folks, Brother Simba gave me some of this knowledge, and others, Eva Doyle and all them there. And then that's what it comes down to, basically. What you learn from your mom is going to really take you a higher level to next. Hopefully, we'll be saying you the next senator or that there. That's what we got to do. I think in order for this to work, we got too many old folks sitting in this power move, including our president. It's time for some new direction has to go down, and not just the AI direction, the smart direction from you guys.
Absolutely. I know we'll be going to a break soon, so we may not finish this point, may have to come back to it. But this is what I want to kind of ask you, right? You made a good point, right? Let's imagine there's a job ad, right?
Yes.
We need new voices in government. What are some of these prerequisites? If I'm a young listener, and we're about to head to break, but I want to kind of lead this thought as we come back to the break. If I'm a young listener asking myself, okay, I see the change that needs to be made, what qualities are we looking for? How do I know if I'm that person, or what should I be thinking to get into that process and be successful on it? And we'll touch more on that when we get back after the break. Thank you.
Hey there, it's Jeff Fox reminding you to get ready for the 2023 Soulful Christmas celebration. December 2nd from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Michigan African American Heritage
That's
Court.
every Thursday.
Enjoy the horse and carriage ride, holiday music and raffles.
The girls
Got some
want to
hot
think that's
chocolate
really
and
important.
Plus,
Just so
we'll
you
be
know,
giving
on
away
CBS on
toys.
Saturday, there
And
was a
you know
girl
we love the
that
toys. So you can donate right now.
plays at the
10
Marshall
a.m.
Chess
to
Club in
4
New York
p.m.
City.
at our studios,
That was on
143
On CBS.
Yeah.
Donation for the toy
And I
giveaway.
think she's an
For
attorney,
newborn
or she's
to
in
13
law
years of
school right
age.
now.
You know,
Right.
last year we
And
blessed
this, I think, is even more important, right? Like we're talking about the question I just asked, what is that young person we're looking for? It's not just boys, right? Because everybody feels like they have
Michigan Avenue African
girls,
American
guys,
Heritage
everybody.
Colorful chess piece on
We'll
the
see
board
you there.
is
It's a queen, right? So we need to look at it like that and not be disqualifying ourselves. I think that's what this
and
question
only 12% of the girls actually play.
Why the red shirt treatment?
Well, that's easy.
As far as the
Easy.
United States Chess
Every
Federation
experience I've had.
and the
has been
Federation,
easy.
which is the governing
Everyone's
body of
helpful. They
all
make
chess
it
in the
easy
United
whenever I
States.
call.
And their website's very
and
easy to
this
get the
opportunity,
answers
like
I need.
that's when you
So
said
many
the scholarship, right?
positive,
We look at scholarships, we look on
It's easy to
Ed
see
Bull
why
and all
so
these
many
other
people
websites,
enjoy
but
the
there's
red shirt
money
treatment.
out there, but we're just
See all the
not
reasons at red shirt
going
treatment
for it.
dot com.
Like I said, we're disqualifying ourselves. Oh, I can't play
And
chess.
just so you know, the HBCUs have just started doing chess. And they're where's the other three? No, the other one.
So he's going to be dealing with a special election.
This is Maurice Ashley, who's their advisor at the HBCU. And this was an article in May called The Black Odyssey, where they're trying to get diversity in chess.
Hi, Buffalo. We are right back after the break. We left the break asking on a question of what type of young person are we looking for to fill these seats? Like I said, I know you could be listening, maybe older or younger, have a person in mind, or maybe you're the person you're thinking about. But what are some of these prerequisites to know to be prepared? We know it's a journey, it's a process, it's not always fair. It's a mud fight, right? Trying to get into politics, and it's an uphill battle of the highest degree. What type of person is fit for that when we talk about bringing the right people in the boat, and what should we be looking for in those people?
That's a journey. It's a long journey. Who have we groomed for that? Seems to be the question. I haven't seen too many young folks that want to go into it before, like I said earlier. Maybe Daryl Gaines, a guy that fits that profile a little bit there, that helps the community, been boots on the ground, genuine about what he's doing, as knowledgeable of all aspects. His wife is into drill and dance and all that. There's some young ladies that's out there might capture our mindset. I could give you another name, Carol. She's from the HEAT program from Back to Basics. Young folks 25 to 35 years old that's doing great things and now elevating themselves. Kenny Simmons. Pastor Kenny Simmons, young man, has elevated himself from crime to success, and now as a pastor of a church, Mike can go in that direction. But then it's that loyalty line that plays a major part when you step into that arena. People, be on your side. But also, we talked about the Democratic Party. We haven't talked about the Republican Party as well. I know Mitch Martin is running for the 147th district as well, so he's in a battle there as well. Mitch Martin does a lot of work with the sheriff's office and all that thing there. He's in a race. So it's other races that's going on. We didn't talk about the independent line. Some people said they didn't have a vote this year. I believe Michael Chapman, Pastor Chapman, ran on the independent line as well. Then we have Miss Eva Doyle. She had a line, and people don't know what her line was. It was the Freedom Line, I believe it was, some years ago when she ran for governor. And people didn't sway that way, and some did. And then you come there, you got legislator Betty Jean Grant. She gives you all the great information that you need, and that's the key part. Getting with some of the folks that have already led the way and picking their mind. Barbara Miller. Barbara Miller, oh my goodness, she ran for common council, she went for legislation, and now she's a controller. Just piggybacking with those folks. I can remember when I was in this game, Butch Hope from it was the third district on Maddie's. He was into this thing here. So I fell behind him and learned some ways about how doing this business. So the knowledge is there. So when you go into office, you don't sway away from it. You don't lock your doors. And so here we are right now, folks. If you want to know who the next candidates do, all they got to do is come down to Power 96.5 WUFO Mix 1080 and talk to the Jim Anderson show. And we get you on the air and we can see who the next candidates can be, so we can question them and see how they is and where they can fit.
Absolutely. And one thing that we kind of talk about and we're kind of hinting at with the idea is voting for us and not for loyalty, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes we're looking for loyalty in a game that has no loyalty, right? You're talking about, I want to vote this side because I have, because they've done.
Or you've been groomed from your mother and your father just to vote on the Democratic line or the Republican line or whatever. And I got to say, true, like Mr. McDuffie said, they gave you flyers and said, let's do this. And now, here you are, right? That plays into play, right?
So how do we, like we talked about before the show, how do we look at the board fully, right? Without feeling like we have loyalty to a side, how do we really look at candidates that are preparing to make change for us, right?
Media.
Not that sounds good, that's for us.
Media has to really step up and stop playing the games of giving avenues for folks that we really don't have our connection. And that plays a part from TV all the way down to radio. That really can sway a person how they vote. And that's crucial. My AI, your mom's over there working all these little gadgets and all that stuff. That stuff can sway a vote. But you know what it is? A lot of people get on and say, yeah, I'm going to vote for you, but they don't even know where they live. Mr. McDuffie, they might live in Ellicott, they might live in Madison, might live in these different districts, and you can't vote like that. So we have to educate in order for this to work. And so that's what the problem is. If it's not a general election like what Brian Higgins, he lives in a district 26. So some folks won't be able to vote, but they think they can, and then they get upset about it.
And one thing, I think we look at media lines, but also there comes a sort of personal responsibility, right? If we're sitting at the table having dinner 5 times out of the week, and every time we're talking about just the Bills, we're just talking about sports. We have never brought up
Go Bills.
Financial literacy. We have never brought up being intentional. We have never brought up the political process. How do we, like you talked about, right? How do we get people that are so disenfranchised with the voting process, believe it doesn't work like you did when you were younger? How do we get people excited about voting? Is it just having the conversation? Is it being just relentless with how much we bring it up? How do we do that without feeling like we're forcing that down at someone's throats? And I know you have experience with that.
Well, with the reason why I focus on the K through 7 is because you're building what they already know. And sometimes they don't understand what they're doing, but what you do is you give them a reason for why they're doing what they're doing or why things are happening to them. That's what chess brings out in them. Every time before, I tell them, before you touch a piece, identify the squares in which you want to go to. Wow. And if that's a safe square to go to. And does the math work out for you in that particular square? And then in addition to that, find out where are the other unprotected pieces are, because unprotected pieces become targets. So if that might be, if you know that you need to get your pieces off the back row, get them off the seats, get them into the game of election, into the game of politics, into the game of whatever you want to do, you got to become active. So you got to get off your seat and get involved. So by doing that, you got to say, where do I want to get involved and how passionate I am about it. About being in business, you got to learn about being business. Don't just go there to say, I just want to be. It's not about being wannabe.
Yes.
It's got to be, you got to be dedicated, because you got to show individuals like Murray that I'm the one that's qualified. And every time I show up to the Merriweather Library, everybody knows why I'm there. I have people sitting at my test table with my little advertisements there, and the guy said, "Hey, I didn't even know who he was, but he said, 'Hey, you want your table?' I said, 'No, you guys are doing a great job.' That means that somebody's looking there at the seat and saying, 'Hey, somebody's there representing Coach McDuffie for chess,' and because they're sitting there with a chess table with chess paraphernalia sitting there. So you got to get involved, and that might be some of the characteristics that might help you."
Absolutely. We have a caller who wants to join into the conversation. Caller, you are on the air.
Yes, good morning. This is Dr. Doyle calling. Hello, Mr. Holman.
How you doing, Mother Doyle?
I'm doing fine. I just really tuned in, but I wanted to let the young man know that I ran for for Lieutenant Governor of New York State in 2010, and I ran on the Freedom Party line.
Yes.
The Freedom Party was known throughout New York, but we made history for two reasons. We were the only Black and Latino-led party in New York State, and we made history because in order for you to get on the ballot, I ran with Mr. Barron. He ran for governor. I ran for lieutenant governor. You had to have 50,000 votes.
Wow.
We made history because we got those 50,000 votes, and I traveled all over New York State campaigning. So I just wanted the young men to know that. And as far as people running for office, you have to have vision. You have to be willing to do something different. That's not the status quo. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I want to just quickly say, Mr. Holman, I just finished writing my 13th book.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to invite you and the young man in the community to come out on December the 9th to my book signing at the Meriwether Library. So you all have a good day.
We'll be there. We'll be there, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. And now the Meriwether Library has the auditorium named after Mother Doyle.
Yeah.
See, it's great to get your accolades while you're alive, not when you're dead, and that's crucial there. And so, but one other thing, Mother Doyle, I noticed that we did a wrap up the vote campaign. That's when we went into high schools and radio stations across America, brought in celebrities and guests and like that there, and they talked to the young kids going like 12th grade and get ready to have that opportunity to vote when they graduate. And so that was working. So we have to get back to the Board of Education and see how they can roll it. I know they're on the air here, Power 96.5 as well. So those questions can come up. Then one thing is tricky about all this here. Once a person gets in the office, they play a main game of letting stuff go through, either yay or nay. I know Michael Chapman is working on trying to get this grocery store off and running, and they have red tape in City Hall. So we get ready to do some campaigning and going in there and saying, how come after all these years you holding their money and you won't allow them to put a market in the community, and that's a no-no. When we say we got deserts and yet still they paid their money years and years ago, here we are today still wondering why things happen. If you can give money to certain areas on Jefferson Avenue, but you won't give other people money, that's not fair. But he has his own money. So it's not like we need to borrow anything, just need to make the approval for them to do what they could do. And so at the Meriwether Library, every Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., we're there. South Violence Coalition is there for a community meeting. It's open for the floor. And some of these discussions come out. I can remember one day, about 2 years ago, brother, we registered over 1,800 people to vote in the city of Buffalo, South Violence Coalition. We're a not-for-profit organization, but what we did was we didn't make a decision on who party you want to. We just registered you, and that was on Mark. I was bringing in 100 registrations every Friday to them. They was looking like, why is you doing this? It's because it's crucial for our community, and I was all over the city. That stuff needs to take place as well. We need to have a registration roll, like Mother Doyle said, 50,000 or better, so we can make the decision on when certain parties decide that that's the best candidate. We can say with our vote in our community, we're going to make the decision, not you. And that's where we are.
Absolutely. Just so you know, Mother Doyle also has a chess background. Her husband played chess. Yes. So she knows about chess. and just so you know, she's been a pillar in the city of Buffalo for a long time. And that Meriwether Library, I consider, is the diamond in the desert. So that's why I changed the name of my chess club to Black Diamonds. The Black Diamond is the most hardest emerald in the jewelry.
Absolutely. Dr. Doyle, me and Mom been talking. We have heard so many good things about it. We have not got to meet her. So, Dr. Doyle, if you're listening, we are tracking you down.
We're going to be there on December 9th.
We're going to meet you on December 9th. But I'm saying,
bring her into the studio.
Or if she
comes.
We're going to be in touch. I'm going to just say that. We're going to lock that down because we need to.
Oh, you feeling it today, right?
We got to talk before. But to touch on your 2 points, the first one was about representation, right? It was about having celebrities, seeing people that look like me saying, no, this is what you need to do because I can trust it, right? It's something to build credibility on.
To relate that to I mean, come on,
absolutely. And to relate that to the chess when we were talking about.
There's a lot of individuals that had never been in the Meriwether Library, just so you know, and they live within blocks of there.
Right. Right. We don't. A lot of people, like we say, that's not what we were raised up in our household to do. And I'll give an example of my family is not a big sports watcher. So every time I go to events and they're like, "Hey, what do you think about this team?" I'm like, I got nothing for you.
We went to the library.
Right. We went to the library. We were readers. They had me in the nonfiction section over there getting stuff with books. And I'm saying that to say that representation and feeling like, again, like we talked about even with Christian Gaddis in the beginning of the interview, feeling like I have a place at the table. And the candidates we're looking for are not just all guys. There's girls, and what we were talking about in the side of in the middle of the two in the break, is we were talking about how there's even girls tournaments for chess coming up with money, scholarships on the line, right? There's places out here that we feel like we need to have a seat at the table at to want to sit there at. And for your second point that you were talking about, I think that's also. I forgot the place I was going with that one.
Can I say something really quick? I think something that you said was really powerful, Mr. McDuffie, and that is I grew up in West Seneca. So, you know, I was used to just looking different and always being comfortable I never felt uncomfortable being in any environment.
Bougie areas.
Not bougie, because it wasn't. Because I grew up in West Seneca, but it was a lower socioeconomic. We owned a house, but it wasn't the rich part of West Seneca. Okay. So that was a whole nother layer. But the thing that was really important to me with my children is I take them everywhere so they are forced to be uncomfortable, because then I can show them when you see me and you can have a common conversation, then it doesn't feel so uncomfortable. And so now we're talking about things like elections and chess. It puts you in environments where you get comfortable feeling uncomfortable because, you want representation to look like you, but you got to get comfortable with people who don't look like you, because that's where the fail happens. We tell you to go to school for engineering, and then we don't say that your first engineering job, like mine, I'm the only Black engineer female with 3,500 employees, and I look young, and I got to lead people who don't look like me and tell them what to do. Then that's a whole psyche. Now I'm leaving because every single one of us did. We left. So I'm saying to you, I think that is a very important point, is when you play a game that forces you to be in environments where you're different, then when it comes to the political things, I'm not as uncomfortable because I've been playing chess with people that didn't look like me. And I was taught, how do I use my mind and not just get scared or run away because I don't understand it. So I'm just going to leave it there.
And just so you know, I grew up in that same type of environment. I grew up on East Utica, right there at East Utica and Jefferson. But then I moved to Pershing. But then I had to walk from Pershing to High Street. But then I got transferred to the campus school, the first magnet school, where my mother wanted us to be. My mother always wanted to see us to get academic. I was interested in running the school. So every place I went, it didn't matter if I was Black. I knew I was Black because James Brown says I'm Black and I'm proud. I had Arthur Eve who came to my house, and Connie Eve, they came to my house, and they said they wanted my brother to be governor. So every time they came to my house, they said, "Oh, there's the governor. There's the next governor. There's the next." But they're talking about my little brother. Right. So my dad, who worked for General Motors, he was one of the first Black UAW presidents. And he said, it's not that I wanted to be president, but I knew how to read the information that helped the contract. Right. And so just so you know, there's studies been done in chess that those kids that play chess perform at a certain level. Right. But those kids that read and play chess outperform their peers twice as much. So guess where I have chess? At the Merriweather Library.
Wow. And
Where do I have I'm having an inaugural middle school chess championship on January 27th at the Downtown Central Library. I got kids who at Enterprise that don't even know where the Downtown Central Library is, which is right around the corner from them. It's like, really? You can't go there? But if Beyonce was there, I bet you they know where to go.
So I asked
We do have to say one thing, though. Jim has a comment. Jim
Yes.
put a comment.
Uh-oh.
He says, you got to know your community issues.
Yes.
You need to be speaking to the things your community is concerned about. You got to keep your awareness of things impacting your community and do like y'all doing now. Talk about these things so y'all sound good to me here in Cleveland. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. So the question is right now, since you said, living in the suburbs, because West Seneca is considered the suburbs, and diversity is happening in Buffalo on a scale that we have never seen before. That vote goes out like that as well, because they get so in tune with who's in there, and they say, oh, we following that suit. And then now they're starting to dip into politics, as you can see it on all levels right now. And eventually, they will have the most power of the vote because they vote. Our Black community has not voted as well as we thought they should be. It's just because we
especially in certain communities.
Yes, in certain communities, in certain elections, we have not had used our power like we used to. You can see that homes are gone, and the vote is now based on that. But most of the minority groups, they have 7 to 8 people in their home, and they all vote. Before they came to the United States, when they sworn in, they had the power to vote. People don't understand. They be like, no, they can't. When once they said they were U.S. citizens, that gave them power to vote. And sometimes they would use that leverage on ways or getting with a candidate, you see what I'm saying? Because somebody will say, yeah, that's the best one. Or that candidate got a lead man that goes around with them and pushes the vote for him, like this McDuffie, but I'm his lead man. Oh, yeah. Constantly pushing your face, so now it's in your mind. And then they roll it through like that. Even our special events that we have, from our Pine Grills to our Juneteenth, to all those things, politicians know when to come to Buffalo. This is the shakeup. They only come here when it's time, when they know Black folks is gathered in big communities
and churches.
They don't even go to church because the church is not filled anymore. But they'll come to an event, right? And then they'll walk and shake hands and then get out of there. They didn't even look at our community, see that it's blatant, it's stuff there, and they say, oh, yeah, we're going to work with you. So that's how they play this game. And then a person that's homegrown here gets pushed to the side. Oh, yeah, we know. Right. We know that's Murray. Yeah, okay, he's doing a great thing, but get pushed to the side. So, but I'm here to be in this battle. Jim Anderson had allowed me to come on the show. They said, why didn't bring you on before the election? Well, God makes that plan. God puts you where you need to be at all times, and I'm there right now. And I'm grateful for the Jim Anderson show, and to meet a brother like you. And I just want to know, is this the direction that you want to go
into politics? Maybe, I don't know. I might take a week to think about it, because I do have a real question I want to ask you. And I'll say we'll talk about that next week, since I know we're leaving out. And this is for both of you guys, right? Okay, if we know we're going up against a big immigrant population and other populations who are using their voting power differently. There's 24 hours in a day, and I want to keep touching on the youth because I'm young and I know this is an important issue, right? We know that there's 24 hours in a day, and our energy is going to go somewhere, right? I got so much energy in a day as a young 19-year-old, and if I don't channel it to good, it's going to go to evil. It's just one of the two options. There's only so many choices. And so you talked about gun violence in our city and how that's such a prevalent issue, especially impacting the youth. And so how do we not control, but how do we direct our youth towards a good sources of energy like chess, right? Like the political venture, instead of going towards these negative things that are impacting us so badly. And maybe you have a good perspective, like we said, because you're not an out-of-town politician. Right. You're someone who's lived here in the city, not only lived here, but actually has a hand in stopping the violence. So how do we direct the youth energy towards positive outlets rather than negative outlets that are so readily available?
It starts in the schools.
Home. You said the school, I say home.
So you said the school.
It works both ways.
Yes.
Home and school.
Yes.
If your parents are involved, then obviously it's going to go to school. If your parents are going to the school for the parent-teacher conference, it's going to come up. a lot of things that I find on the chessboard or through the chessboard by teaching chess to the young kids, this stuff comes up. And I tell the parents, I say, be kind. Sometimes you gotta listen.
Mhm.
And a lot of things that I've done in changing my coaching teaching is because of the kids. You know, I take everything off the chessboard and I teach them individually what each piece does and what it's responsible for doing. So a lot of times, it could start from the home because some of the grandmasters in India, Mr. Anand, he was taught chess by his mom. So a lot of times that start from mom before you even knew that there's a chess coach, before you even knew there was a chess tournament, but you got involved. And just like my dad, they just wanted us to learn. But now I'm a tournament director. I bring in people from outside of the city of Buffalo, outside of Masson District. They come from Lockport. They come from Orchard Park. They come from Erie, Pennsylvania. They come from Toronto. And they're right there at the Meriwether Library. And people at 5339 Mikowski, they can't even find the Meriwether Library.
So what you said very clearly about gun violence and how we reached our children in the community. We actually had 150 kids through the county that came to work on the gun intervention program. So guess what? From the hours from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock, those kids wasn't in trouble anymore. But they were learning from mentors and things like that there. Some people that we had Judge Hannah come in. We had a couple of judges coming in that just came on the bench to talk to them. And then we had great advisors coming. The HEAT program comes in on here. And then we got the Lifesavers. You can listen to them every Sunday from 2:30 Sunday to 3 o'clock. They're on the air, and then from the age of 8 to 24, and they come on the air and talk. And so that's what we have. We got a gun intervention program that's working and successful in the city of Buffalo.
I just want to say this as we kind of close up. We know we're going to be following this up next week. We got to continue to see if some things we want to touch on, the 33 plan and some other things as well. But I want to just kind of recap what we talked about today. Look, there's a lot of change, shake-up happening in the city. And look, you got to get tapped in somewhere. And whether you're taking the principles of chess and taking that, or you're just looking in the newspaper and being informed, we have to change not only our mindset, but how we are raising up children, how we are having conversations, the dialogues we're having, because it's clear that if we do not prepare right now, if we're not preparing for success, we're preparing to fail. And I really don't think we can afford to fail Buffalo right now. So I want to say thank you again to Mr. Holman. Thank you again to Mr. McDuffie for coming in today.
And practice makes permanent.
Practice makes permanent. and that's what we need. We need permanent change in this city to create the city that we know we can be, the city of good neighbors that we really ought to believe when we say it.
You become a
close it up.
You become a people of Norse.
Peace.
Absolutely. Have a good time. Have a good rest of your day, Buffalo.
The shake up is coming. The shake up is coming.